How many times have you heard this before? Take a listen.
I think people over 65 years of age in the United States today are freer now because of Medicare.
The only problem for Harrington is that he brought it up before Milton Friedman, who had already spent years explaining the dangers of excessive government intervention.
There are many people who have benefited from Medicare, but you're not looking at the cost side. What has happened to the people who are paying for it?
And today we're covering it all. So let's jump right into it.
It seemed to me he was saying that the golden age for America, when it was truly a land of opportunity, was the late 19th, early 20th century. No regulations, no permits, no red tape.
I would argue that the government played a decisive role in an enormous grant to the railroads in creating an American capitalist economy. And secondly, if you go back to that golden age, you find that the government constantly intervened in a rather characteristic way. It used troops against strikers. American labor history has been the most violent, bloody class struggle anywhere in the world. And the government, up until 1932, the law, the courts, the society, always sided with business, always sided against working people. Therefore, I would argue that both economically and in terms of repressing the attempts of people to assert their freedom, government prior to the rise of the welfare state in this country was more or less owned by business.
For those unfamiliar with Michael Harrington, he was one of the most influential socialist thinkers in America, co-founded the DSA, and even served as an advisor to Lyndon B. Johnson as the administration expanded the welfare state after his book, The Other America, made waves in the mid-60s. Now, the main theme you'll notice with those socialists is how selective they are with history. They tend to highlight the parts that fit their narrative while conveniently leaving out everything that doesn't. In Harrington's case, he completely skipped the progressive era, when presidents like Roosevelt used government power to break up monopolies, earning him the nickname, quote, trust buster, which undercuts the original argument being made here. Friedman poked more holes in his narrative, giving more examples of what I just said.
Milton Friedman.
Michael Harrington is seeing the hole in the barn door, and he's not looking at the barn door itself. The plain fact is, during the whole of that period, while government did intervene from time to time, and mostly to do harm, I agree with him that government intervention was, in the main, not a good thing, tariffs, for example. On the other hand, throughout that whole period, government spending, federal government spending, central government spending, never was more than 3% of the national income. It was trivial. The land grants to the railroads were a minor factor. I don't approve of them. I'm not saying they were a good thing, but they were a very minor factor. One has to have a sense of proportion, and that goes to the whole discussion. I am not an anarchist. I am not in favor of eliminating government. I believe we need a government. But we need a government that sets a framework and rules within which individuals, pursuing their own objectives, can work together and cooperate together. And they work together and cooperate together not only in economic areas.
Now, this is a key distinction the left fails to understand. Friedman's point wasn't that governments shouldn't exist altogether. Instead, he was making the case for them not to intervene in every aspect of our lives, arguing that the real issue is where to draw the line. Now, that's a common sense take because, quite frankly, a lot of what the federal government handles today would work better if it were left to the states or even the private sector. After all, those two are much closer to the people they deal with, while bureaucrats sitting in Washington generally have little understanding of the day-to-day challenges local communities face. Harrington tried to push back by taking the conversation in a different direction, but in doing so, he only handed Friedman even more ammunition to make his case. We'll get into that right after a quick message from today's sponsor, Cloaked. Now, they actually challenged me to see how exposed my personal information really is. So I typed in my phone number on their website, and apparently, my threat level is high. It even found information like my social security number. I mean, this is pretty bad. The reason is simple. Data brokers make billions collecting and selling our personal information every time we sign up for apps, websites, or online services. Cloaked tackles that problem before it starts. It shows you where your data is exposed and removes it. It gives you unlimited burner emails, phone numbers, and usernames so companies and data brokers never get your real information in the first place. Plus, Cloaked monitors the dark web, includes a VPN, password manager, AI spam call filtering, and $1 million in identity theft insurance. So, just go to cloaked.com/red-white-rational. Enter your phone number and run the free security scan. It takes just a few seconds, and you might be surprised with what it finds. If you're ready to take back your privacy, use cloaked.com/redwhiterational to get 30% off any plan. Now back to the video.
I just think that two things. One, to view freedom positively, I think people over 65 years of age in the United States today are freer now because of Medicare. I do not think that the freedom to die from the lack of medicine was a very good thing. Secondly, related to industrialists, I think that one of the startling things about American history is that when Franklin Roosevelt was saving the system from itself, the main beneficiaries were screaming bloody murder at him for being a traitor to his class, when he was in fact the salvation of that class. And I think if you look at our history, I do think you find a tremendous myopia on the part of industrialists, and you find that the positive increments to our freedom, interestingly enough, have not come from the college graduates, but often from people not from the best people. It's come from working people, it's come from poor people, it's come from blacks and Hispanics and the like.
Okay, you simply can't build an economic outlook based on emotions and half-truths. And this is where Harrington's argument begins to contradict itself. He opened up by claiming the government and powerful businesses had worked together during the Gilded Age to protect their interests, which is fair. But going from that to praising FDR for expanding government power and, quote, saving the system from itself is a type of cliche that really undermines his own point. You see, once the government gains the authority to direct large parts of the economy, it stops being a neutral referee and becomes another player in the game, opening the door to regulatory capture. This leap of logic set up Friedman's final takedown, and it's one for the history books.
Unaccustomed as I am to agreeing with Michael Harrington, I will agree in part with what he's just said. I do not believe it's proper to put the situation in terms of industrialists versus government. On the contrary, one of the reasons why I am in favor of less government is because when you have more government, industrialists take it over. And the two together form a coalition against the ordinary worker and the ordinary consumer. Now, I want to go to your question about Medicare. There are many people who have benefited from Medicare, but you're not looking at the cost side. What has happened to the people who are paying for it? We don't have a free good. It isn't coming from nowhere. And are they benefiting from it in a cost-effective way? Those are the questions. It's demagoguery, if you'll pardon me, Michael Harrington, to say the people who have Medicare are freer. Of course, in one dimension. But they themselves have been paying all their lives. And have they gotten a good bargain? At the moment they have. The young men, the young working people who are going into Social Security now, they're going to get a very raw deal indeed.
Yeah. That last line turned out to be prophetic. What socialists missed is that every economic policy comes with long-term consequences. If we look at Medicare and Social Security, both programs are a few years away from running out of reserves simply because the safety net keeps expanding without accounting for the level of taxation needed to keep it up. Back when these programs were introduced, they gave the politicians behind them a huge boost. The difficult part was always going to come decades later, when the bills finally came due. That's exactly the kind of trade-off Friedman keeps warning about, and we're slowly walking towards it. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, keep thinking.